When sellers won't sell and buyers can't afford to buy, the entire housing ecosystem freezes. July 2025. Dallas. In the past month, 885 sellers yanked their listings, a huge 42% jump from last year. Rockwall County cancellations soared 51%. Collin County surged 57%. Sellers aren't adjusting to the new reality, they're just walking away. They're pulling homes from the market instead of cutting prices. And that refusal to face the facts is creating a crisis no one prepared for. And now Governor Greg Abbott, jaw tight and voice strained, has signed emergency bills acknowledging something Texas leadership avoided saying for years. The state is facing an affordability crisis that even he can't fully control. The truth nobody wants to say out loud? Dallas homeowners are in denial, and that denial is suffocating the market. The boom that blinded Dallas. 3 years ago, Dallas was unstoppable. Californians and New Yorkers poured in. Tech firms relocated. New subdivisions popped up everywhere. Prices exploded from $185,000 in March 2017 to $331,000 in May 2025. Sellers got rich. Buyers paid whatever it took. Everyone assumed the surge would last forever. But in 2025, gravity returned. Inventory hit 38,700 homes in June, the most since 2018, a 24% increase in just a year. Home values fell 4.6%, the third largest drop in the nation. Houses sat on the market for 29 days, up from 19. Price cuts spread across 36% of listings, and seller profits collapsed from 39.2% to 29.7% in a single year. Sellers watched their equity evaporate. Instead of adjusting prices, they simply quit. They delisted. They refused to accept offers. They decided to wait for the market to rebound. But waiting doesn't fix frozen markets, it deepens the ice. Every cancellation is another stalled sale, another family stuck, another buyer who gives up. Dallas isn't correcting, it's freezing solid. How the boom set the trap. Dallas never tried to be Austin. No quirky startup identity, no tech town image. It was the reliable, corporate heartbeat of Texas, predictable, profitable, stable. Then, 2020 flipped the script. Remote workers from expensive cities looked at Dallas as a cheaper, tax-friendly refuge. Builders went into overdrive. In 2024, North Texas approved 71,788 new housing units, more than any metro in the nation. From 2017 to 2025, home values soared 79%. Bidding wars, waived inspections, cash offers, the usual symptoms of a runaway market. Agents watched homes worth $450,000 get offers for $550,000, and sellers happily assumed prices would just keep rising. But under the surface, the cracks widened. Property taxes shot up 30% plus between 2019 and 2024. Insurance costs doubled or more due to storms, freezes, and disasters. Dallas's affordability edge started eroding, but the price boom hid it until the Fed stepped in. The Fed slams the brakes. In 2022, the Fed began hiking rates to battle inflation. Mortgage rates jumped from under 3% to over 7% by 2023. A $400,000 mortgage went from $1,700 to $2,700 per month. Overnight, affordability destruction. Buyers vanished. First-timers were locked out. People with 3% mortgages refused to sell at 7%. Demand shrank. Just as a wave of new construction was finishing, the perfect storm was forming. The inventory flood arrives. By mid-2025, inventory, 38,700 homes. Months of supply, 4.8, highest since 2012. Days on market, 29. Price reductions, 36%. Fall-through rate, to 18%. And then came the strangest twist. Sellers started canceling listings at historic rates. Dallas County, 885 cancellations in 30 days. North Texas, 35% more cancellations. Nationwide, 47% jump in May alone. This wasn't strategy, it was denial. Sellers couldn't accept that their 2022 paper wealth was gone. They refused to sell for less than their peak valuation. So instead of dropping the price, they simply exited the market. The unmotivated seller epidemic. Economist Sriram Villupuram put it plainly. This isn't a market full of motivated sellers. They aren't forced to sell. They just don't want to accept reality. Their refusal freezes the system. Agents see it. Jim Fight of Century 21 said sellers are still pricing their homes like it's 2022, even though buyers have vanished and profit margins are shrinking. And the data is merciless. Profits dropped nearly 10 full percentage points in a year. 3 real people living the freeze. Rachel, Plano bought at $485K, needs to move, refuses to accept a loss, now paying 2 housing payments. David and Karen, Frisco wanted to downsize, refused offers, now stuck in a too-big house with rising taxes and falling. Equity, Mike, investor bought 3 properties during the boom, can't sell them, can't raise rents, can barely cover payments. His portfolio is turning into a liability. Abbott steps in, but his hands are tied, facing political heat. Gov. Abbott declared property tax relief an emergency in early 2025. Bills were rushed through. Homestead exemption raised from $100K to $140K and to $200K for seniors, disabled. Business property exemptions increased dramatically. This will save most homeowners $500, $900 a year. Helpful, but not enough. At the bill signing, Abbott's tense demeanor said what he didn't. Tax cuts don't thaw frozen housing markets. When reporters pressed him about Dallas cancellations, he deflected. But everyone in the room knew property taxes aren't the reason sellers are walking away. Denial is. By fall 2025, the freeze is complete. Dallas. Inventory at record levels. Prices down. Listings stagnating. Contracts falling apart. Cancellations everywhere. Buyers see homes sitting, but sellers refuse to negotiate. Deals collapse over appraisals. Negotiations fall apart at the closing table. Landlords are squeezed too. Rents are falling because of massive apartment construction. Vacancies rising. Investors who expected easy cash flow are underwater. Agents are hurting. Builders are pulling back. And the wider economy is feeling the chill. How Dallas lost its sellers. Dallas was supposed to be safe, steady, predictable. The pandemic boom destroyed that stability. Prices doubled, expectations soared, and when the market shifted, sellers couldn't accept the new reality. The cancellation spike 42% in Dallas, 51% in Rockwall, 57% in Collin, is the clearest evidence of mass denial in modern U.S. housing history. Every canceled listing traps a family. Every trapped family stalls mobility. Every stalled move freezes the market further. This isn't a crash, it's a slow, suffocating ice age. And tax cuts won't melt it. Experts expect Dallas to bottom out in late 2025 or early 2026. Zillow predicts a modest 2.1% further price decline. But recovery will be slow because seller psychology is damaged. Once homeowners feel burned, they hesitate for years. What's happening in Dallas isn't just economics, it's psychology. For a decade, homeowners were conditioned to expect one thing: their home would always be worth more next year. When every neighbor sold for a fortune and every headline screamed record highs, people internalized the belief that real estate never goes backward. So when the market softened, it didn't feel like a correction. It felt like betrayal. Sellers weren't just losing money, they were losing identity. In boomtown Dallas, a home wasn't shelter. It was a trophy, a wealth engine, a badge of smart timing. And now that badge looks tarnished, people don't know how to emotionally process it. So they retreat, they delist, they wait, they refuse to engage. A frozen market isn't created by economics alone, it's created by pride. While sellers hold the market hostage, the human cost quietly grows. Families who need to relocate for work are stuck juggling 2 housing payments. Seniors who plan to downsize are trapped in oversized homes that eat up their retirement savings. Newlyweds who plan to move into their first house are watching interest rates choke that dream. Behind every canceled listing is a life plan, suddenly on pause. A mom who wants to move closer to her aging parents but can't sell. A dad whose new job is in another state, commuting weekly because he won't accept a $30,000 loss. A young couple expecting their first child but trapped in a one-bedroom apartment because every attempted purchase collapses at appraisal. The headlines talk about inventory and cancellation rates, but beneath those numbers are real families being quietly crushed by a market that has refused to adapt. Real estate investors, who once fueled the boom, are now amplifying the downturn. During 2020-2022, investors purchased Dallas homes at historic levels, betting on endless rental demand and perpetual appreciation. But as rents decline and vacancies rise, the math no longer works. When investors can't sell, can't raise rents, and can't refinance, they panic. Some are starting to dump properties at discounts. Others are teetering on the edge of default. Few are beginning to quietly walk away, the early signs of jingle mail resurfacing in Texas, where keys end up back with lenders. If enough investors break, the market could shift from denial to desperation, a phase that comes with far sharper price drops. Another force squeezing Dallas is the lending industry. During the boom, appraisals often chased the market upward. Today, they're dragging it down. Appraisers now lean conservative. Lenders demand stricter valuations. Deals that look solid on paper fall apart when the appraisal comes in $25,000 under contract. Buyers can't bridge the gap. Sellers refuse to drop their price. Contracts implode. This isn't just a glitch, it's systemic. When appraisers don't trust the market can't function. Banks have tightened lending standards too. Higher credit score requirements, larger down payments, stricter debt-to-income ratios, fewer exceptions or common-sense approvals. The boom was fueled by easy money. The freeze is being reinforced by cautious money. Dallas's identity as the business capital of Texas cushioned it for years. Relocations from Fortune 500 firms created steady demand for corporate housing, executive homes, and suburban developments. But in 2025, that pipeline slowed. Companies paused relocations. Hiring freezes rippled through major employers. Tech relocations from California declined sharply. Office vacancies climbed, reducing the inflow of new residents. Without corporate migration fueling demand, the Dallas housing market lost one of its strongest, least visible drivers. And when job mobility slows, housing liquidity slows with it. A frozen labor market feeds a frozen housing market, and vice versa. Home builders are in a brutal bind. They spent 3 years racing to meet pandemic-era demand, and now they're drowning in finished inventory. But they can't simply stop building. They have contractual obligations, land deals, labor agreements, and financing packages that require homes to be completed. So what do builders do when buyers vanish? They discount. They offer incentives. They buy down mortgage rates. They pile on upgrades, closing cost credits, even free appliances. But here's the twist. Every builder discount puts more pressure on existing home sellers, making their already unrealistic asking prices even more detached from reality. Builders are motivated. Homeowners are stubborn. That imbalance is prolonging the freeze. Economists are now warning that Dallas's recovery won't be like past cycles. Not because the fundamentals are weak, but because seller psychology is damaged in a way the city hasn't seen in decades. The typical recovery pattern: prices fall, buyers return, sellers adjust, may not apply here. Instead, Dallas might experience years of stagnant prices, slow sales, reduced mobility, elevated inventory, lingering distrust among sellers. The damage wasn't caused by a crash, it was caused by resistance to reality, and that takes longer to unwind. There's a growing misconception among buyers that the market is on the brink of collapse and that massive discounts are coming. But seller denial acts like glue, holding prices artificially high, preventing the kind of downward spiral that would create true bargains. Ironically, buyers and sellers are both waiting for the other side to blink. Buyers want deeper discounts. Sellers want 2022 prices. Neither is willing to move first. The standoff is why Dallas hasn't crashed, but also why it can't recover. Right now, sellers are walking away voluntarily, but life eventually forces decisions. Job relocations, divorce, retirement, health issues, estate sales, financial stress, loan renewals for investors. These events don't care about mortgage rates or pride. They force homes back onto the market. Economists expect a forced sale drip in late 2025 and 2026, not a flood, but a steady trickle of sellers who can't wait anymore. This may be the pressure valve Dallas needs, unfreeze its market, but it also means more price correction is likely ahead. Dallas didn't implode all at once. It froze, one canceled listing at a time, one unrealistic seller at a time, one rejected offer at a time. By the time the governor signed his emergency bills, the freeze was already complete. This is the story of how Dallas homeowners, clinging to the past, stalled their own market and watched their wealth evaporate.